You know how it goes. One day, you randomly get the urge to play The Sims 4, you go all in, you spend hours crafting the perfect Sims, building the perfect house, setting up the perfect story, and then, a week or two later, poof, gone. You haven't touched the game in months. And then one day, it all starts again. Why does this happen? Why do we always quit The Sims 4? If you're looking for your next game to obsess over and inevitably burn out on, check out Instant Gaming's library. Not only do they offer tons of different games and DLC, but they also offer all of them at a discount. You can find games for PC, PlayStation, Xbox, and Nintendo. The 2-week phase is that cycle where you suddenly get obsessed with a game, sink all your free time into it, and then, just as quickly as it started, the interest fades, leaving the game untouched for weeks or even months. It's not that you dislike the game now, you still love it, you just can't bring yourself to open it. And then, one day, the cycle repeats. For The Sims 4, this usually starts with a spark of inspiration. Maybe you saw a really cool build, a new expansion just dropped, or a simmer on YouTube inspired you to start a chaotic legacy challenge. You fire up the game, fully committed to a long-term save. For the first few days, you're all in. You're making detailed family trees, micromanaging their careers, and even following their wants just to keep the storytelling immersive. But then, whether it's after one sim generation or halfway through decorating yet another room, you start feeling it. That little itch of boredom. Maybe it's the realization that every social interaction is starting to feel repetitive. Maybe your Sims are too successful now and there's no real struggle left. Maybe your original vision for the save isn't as exciting as it was in your head. Or maybe, deep down, you just don't feel like playing anymore, but you can't explain why. At first, you might try to push through.
I'll switch households. I'll start a new challenge. Maybe I just need a few mods.
But nothing really brings back that initial spark. Eventually, you close the game, fully intending to return soon. Days pass, weeks, then one day you realize you haven't touched it in months. And then, seemingly out of nowhere, it hits again. You get that one idea, see that one video, or just randomly feel the urge to play, and suddenly you're back in, fully obsessed for another 2 weeks until the cycle repeats. This happens because Sims 4 and other similar sandbox games like Minecraft don't have a natural endpoint, which is both a good and bad thing. The good? You can play forever, exploring the content, creating new storylines, builds, and characters. The bad? Unlike a story-driven game with a final boss or an ending to the overarching storyline, The Sims 4 keeps going. Forever. This means we unconsciously create our own stopping points without realizing it. We play until we feel like we've completed something, even if the game itself never tells us to stop. You built whatever it is you wanted to build, goal achieved, now you're done. Your legacy family has become rich and stable and no longer struggles. Now it's boring. You've spent hours downloading mods in CC and now, once you're technically ready to play the game, the motivation to actually play is gone. A gameplay loop is what keeps players engaged over time. Ideally, it should have a cycle that constantly feeds into itself, providing short-term goals, long-term progression, and rewarding the player for continued investment. The Sims 4, however, lacks a strong, long-term loop. Here's why. There is no real progression or long-term challenge. Many life sim games, Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing, they all have a built-in sense of progress. For example, in Stardew Valley, the player starts off with an empty farm. They work towards upgrades, they unlock new areas, and eventually they can automate their farm. In Animal Crossing, the player slowly expands their town by unlocking characters, finishing collections, and decorating with hard-to-get furniture. On the other hand, in Sims 4, progression can feel too easy. If you really set your mind to it, you can max out careers pretty quickly, meaning you can simply move on and finish the next career. Money is, pretty easy to gain. I mean, I have a couple of videos on how to make simoleons based on weird money-making ways. That's how easy it is. We've resorted to limiting the ways we can make simoleons to make it more of a struggle, therefore being more fun. Once your sim family is established, there's no real struggle. Struggles have to be player-created, and even then, sometimes it's not that fun. You know? When you think about it, in past Sims games, there was more of a financial struggle. Sims 1 is notoriously hard, which made even small achievements feel rewarding. Once you hit that point where your Sim has the perfect house, tons of money, and maxed out skills, the game just plateaus. Another reason why players may quit is that legacies don't feel meaningful. Let me explain myself, okay? Unlike The Sims 2 and The Sims 3, where Sims have stronger memories, The Sims 4 generational gameplay feels, shallow. This is because there's no meaningful consequences. Sims forget things quickly. Their emotions don't last. I mean, there is the sentiments, which is a good upgrade to how it was. Don't get me wrong, I like that. That is kind of like their emotions lasting. But still, I don't know. They don't hold grudges the same way they used to. You know? I don't know. Genetics are weak, kids don't inherit distinct personality traits from parents, so you don't really see those traits passed down through the generations, unless of course you give it to them. Finally, and I think this is the most important one out of the 3 points here, aging doesn't change the gameplay at all. Elders don't have unique challenges or gameplay depth. This means that once the founder sim is successful, playing their descendants feels kind of repetitive. Lastly, I want to blame how they've integrated DLC to why Sims 4 doesn't have a strong gameplay loop. Each expansion is great on its own, but that doesn't mean it's adding depth to the gameplay, the pre-existing gameplay. For example, Seasons adds weather, but what does it really change to the daily life of the sim? It doesn't really affect them that much. Eco lifestyle adds pollution and neighborhood voting, but does anyone actually use this anymore? Did anyone actually use it at all? How well does this integrate with other packs? High school years added teen gameplay, but once your sim ages up, it's kind of irrelevant, don't you think? When you compare the DLC to Sims 2 DLC, you can see a big difference. In Sims 2, it felt like packs were layered on top of each other rather than staying isolated. But that's the big thing about Sims 4. Everything is so darn isolated. Which, I get because you don't want to have to, purchase all of this DLC for everything to work properly, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that packs should be integrated better, and they should think about other packs while creating the new packs, and still have it as a standalone DLC that you don't need other DLC to play. We don't want any more My First Pet stuff, okay? That's not what I'm saying. But as a result of all of these packs being isolated, even with lots of DLC, the game doesn't feel richer over time. It just feels like a bunch of separate mechanics floating in the same world. DLC should make the game deeper, but sometimes it just makes it feel wider. Despite all of this, we always return to The Sims. But why? Well, I guess there are a few reasons why. For the nostalgia and comfort of it all. The Sims franchise is cozy. Sims is a cozy game. No matter how many times we quit and restart, there's something soothing about opening up the game, perhaps starting fresh or returning to an old save, and just playing the game after taking a break for a few months.
Maybe a few years.
If you're like me, you've grown up playing with The Sims. There is an added emotional connection that I find it hard to shake. The Sims is like an old friend. You might not talk to them all the time, but you always come back to check in. There's also the creative aspect of the game. Sims allows you to create stories, builds, characters in ways that other games don't offer in the same way. I find myself building in Minecraft and thinking about how if this was The Sims, I'd be able to do X, Y, and Z. Does anyone else think that while playing other games? Creative burnout does happen, but creativity also regenerates over time. This recharge means you're ready to go and you got tons of ideas you want to try out. Another way creativity regenerates would be seeing other players' builds and stories on social media. It might reignite inspiration and the desire to play again. Every time I think I'm done, I see someone else's build and suddenly I want to build again too. Then there's the new content effect. The cycle is predictable. New DLC, hype, play for 2 weeks, burn out, quit, repeat in a few months. The new DLC gives us just enough excitement to bring us back. The second I see a new expansion trailer, I am all in again. Even if I know I'll quit after about, 2 weeks. This isn't just a Sims thing. Games like Minecraft, Stardew Valley, and Animal Crossing have the same thing happening to them, and happening to the players. They're the kind of games that don't end. So your brain creates its own stopping points, like I said earlier. And once you've hit that invisible wall, whether it's a completed house, a finished challenge, or just creative burnout, it's hard to keep going. So yeah, this 2-week phase happens in a lot of open-ended games. There are many reasons why. For starters, the rise of short-term gaming. Players tend to jump between games more than ever before. There are so many games at our fingertips, why wouldn't you bounce between games? If you feel like playing an action RPG today, but a first-person shooter or survival game tomorrow, and you had access to those types of games, why wouldn't you do that? That being said, there are way more games to play now in the past, making it easier to abandon one for another. On top of that, there's mobile games and live service games like Fortnite. These games keep players moving between experiences. This is kind of what The Sims 4 is trying to do with all of these events, by the way. There's always something happening, a big new event, a new season, new skins, etc, etc, etc. There's always something new to play, so why would we stay hooked on one game forever? Plus, you cannot deny how the content consumption mentality has changed over the years. Like everything nowadays, players consume content quickly rather than immersing in it. There's this binge element to it, like a Netflix binge but for video games. And I'll be the first to admit it, Sims 4 is fun to binge. There's no need to play it like Stardew where there's a slow, steady gameplay loop. You don't need to be patient like that. It's a bingeable game. You play obsessively for a few days where all you can think about is your Sims, and then it tapers off. We play The Sims like we binge a Netflix show, obsessively for a while, then not at all. Like I mentioned earlier, with story-driven games, it gives players an ending. You feel satisfied when you're done. It feels good to complete a game. Open-ending games, Sims, Minecraft, Animal Crossing, don't have a clear ending, which means we have to decide for ourselves when we're done. The problem with that is that we rarely feel done, so we simply fade out instead of finishing on a satisfying note. When do you actually finish a Sims game? You don't. You just get bored and quit. Maybe this cycle is inevitable. Maybe all open-ended games will have this problem. But if The Sims 4 had a better long-term goals, deeper relationships, tougher challenges, meaningful generational gameplay, would we stick around longer? Could something like The Sims 5, Paralives, Inzoi fix this? Or is this just how life Sims work? Maybe, and here's a thought, maybe the answer isn't to fight the 2-week Sims phase. Maybe the answer is to embrace it. So if you're in the middle of Sims 4 2-week phase right now, enjoy it. Because soon your Sims will be sitting in their homes, frozen in time, waiting for the next phase to begin. Unless this is your forever save, chances are you're going to start fresh for your next 2-week phase in about 6 months from now. Anywho, thank you for watching until the very end. I cannot wait to talk more about Sims, Paralives, and other video game stuff with you very soon. Until then, stay happy, healthy, and hydrated. Bye!